Welcome to Boxes and Lines, a different kind of finance podcast from a different kind of stock exchange, featuring IEX founder Ronan Ryan and Chief Market Policy Officer John Ramsey. Now here to give you the straight talk on how the markets really work, it's Ronan and JR.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Boxes and Lines.
Welcome to Boxes and Lines. Welcome to the Daily Brew, the brains of the brew.
Yeah, we told you this would happen. Don't worry.
Today, got it out of my system. We're all good.
Yeah, he got it out. Today, JR and I are delighted to have Neal Freyman and Toby Howell from Morning Brew newsletter and Morning Brew daily podcast. They're one of our rivals, but they do this daily. So
I don't know to really qualify as rivals. They have millions of listeners.
Yes,
we have a few less than that, but
and we'll get to that. I'm taking notes today. Yeah. So since its inception as a newsletter in 2017, Morning Brew has carved out a unique space in the media landscape by distilling dry and complex business and financial news into something digestible and engaging for a wider audience. That's what we thought we were doing, but probably unsuccessfully did with our wonky shit. But Neal and Toby have been instrumental in this process, helping turning Morning Brew into a daily essential read and podcast for millions. So whether you're deeply entrenched in the financial world or just curious about how business news can be made more approachable, this Boxes and Lines is for you. Welcome, Neal and Toby.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Please, we've locked the door so you can't leave. They're looking at each other like, is there an eject button here?
Yes, no.
What have we done?
They have done us the honor of being here in person, and so...
and I'll give a quick background on both of them. Neal is managing editor, joined in 2017 with a background in geography and urban planning, classical music pianist as a kid. Very good.
Well, very mediocre. I don't know how that got in on.
Yeah. Well, I got one for you, Toby. He started as writer. He was former captain of the Brown soccer team. I'm a massive soccer fan. Are you is that a surprise too that we know this?
I'm a United supporter, so
and I'm Liverpool.
There's a little tension in the podcast.
You know what though? But the good thing in this day and age is United are fairly crap at the moment.
Yeah.
So
fairly, extremely crap. Yes.
So I'll be nice. If you said Chelsea or Man City, I'd probably let you out.
I thought we were locked in.
I know nothing about soccer, but I did see the show on Beckham. The series
right.
See that, which I thought was very interesting.
Did you guys see that? That was pretty good.
Yeah,
incredible.
I just saw the memes.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Great as a United fan. It made me feel good about the glory days.
Yeah. Well, that's when they were fantastic. But anyway, I'm going to ask the first question, and we'll kick this off. For listeners who may not be familiar with you guys, because they're absolute fanboys of us, can you give us a brief overview of Morning Brew, its founding story, and how it's going to become such a popular newsletter and podcast? And JR is going to probably ask you 7 times today, how do we monetize shit like you? So
yeah, that's fine. We'll get that out early too.
Sell ads. I guess I can go since I've been at Morning Brew a little bit longer, but Morning Brew started nearly a decade ago at the University of Michigan by these two guys.
Oh, go blue.
Go blue.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big time for Morning Brew.
He's a Michigan guy.
So it started at the University of Michigan by these two guys, Alex Lieberman and Austin Reef. It started as really a digest of the Wall Street Journal. Alex created this PDF because it was his senior year. There were people who were interviewing for investment banking roles and banking roles. And I've never interviewed for any of those kind of positions before, but apparently they ask you what's going on in the financial world. What stocks do you like? What's going on? Nobody was reading the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times. So Alex put together this PDF that was basically a simple digest of what was going on. People loved it. It spread across campus. It spread across multiple campuses. And then in 2017, Austin and Alex joined forces and they were like, maybe this is a business. They looked at other newsletter companies like The Skim that were monetizing newsletters, which we can talk about, and podcasts. And then they turned it into a business, hired a few writers like me, and things kind of grew from there because it was just a compelling product that fit a really a need that people needed to know information, and the legacy media outlets out there just weren't catering to young people.
So really directing your attention to Gen X through Zers. And Toby, when did you join?
So Neal actually hired me originally as a writer. I reported to him. He was the managing editor of the newsletter. I was a writer under him. Did that for a few years, actually left the company, and then stayed friends with everyone. Austin kind of texted me one day, say, hey, we're launching this podcast. Come in and do a host test, see what it's like. And Neal was the kind of locked in as a co-host, and they just kept inviting me back essentially. And now We have Morning Brew Daily, which is kind of the extension of the newsletter in podcast form a little bit. It's kind of crazy. It took us this long to launch a daily podcast as well, but we've been at it for just about a year now. And
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Well, it obviously is a lot of work. Because actually, I listened to the one that you guys did this morning, even. So you're like fresh from that. And we talked about some of those topics, but that's like a lot of work to like pull together all of the data. I mean, you got to have a fair amount of help.
We do have a lot of help. We have a great team behind us. We have audio people, technical director, producer, assistant producer, because we produce the show not only for audio, but for YouTube as well, because that's what you have to do these days. Are you guys on video?
No.
Are we on video? All right, well, that's the first.
Is that lesson number one?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Unless you want to invest in video, I don't think it's that important. But we do have a YouTube presence in case we blow up and want to be YouTubers one day.
The red carpet.
Yeah.
But no, it takes a lot of prep. I mean, we are talking about 6 stories every single day, which means we have to prepare for 6 stories. Takes many hours the night before, and we each get in to the office at about 4:30 a.m. for a 6 a.m. taping just to read some more. And because when you're talking about something compared to when you're writing about it, it's completely different.
Do you rely?
Investment banking might have been easier, fellas.
Yeah.
Just
I know.
Better hours. Yeah.
better hours.
Right.
Yeah.
You thought this was a cushy job that probably was turned out not to be. But I'm interested in, you obviously have people that are giving you topic suggestions. Do you come up with ideas just from talking to your friends, from like, getting ideas from colleagues? And
so, I mean, Neal has been in the news curation game now since the incept of the Brew, which was 2017. So he's kind of developed this power of sorting through the news cycle, figuring out what is going to be most relevant for the people listening, for the people reading, and kind of narrowing it down that way. So I would say that's one of your superpowers is news distillation. So it's definitely a collaborative process with like Neal, myself, and then other people on the team as well. But we get it down to, sometimes it's not narrowing down. Sometimes we're like, all right, there's not that much going on today. It's the middle of December. What the hell are we going to talk about? So sometimes it's stretching it in order to find enough to talk about.
And you have expanded the web, in my sense, too, because you talked about kind of distilling topics that are in the Wall Street Journal. But I noticed from looking at your podcast today, I mean, you talk about like the report on like plastic nanoparticles and like stuff getting it, which is fascinating, but it's like,
as we sit here drinking bottled water.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just figuring out what we think will be relevant to the people listening, always with a business lens on it. So we ended up talking about the International Plastic Water Bottle Industry Group, which of course there's an industry group for that. So we do always try to apply a business lens on stuff, but we do want to talk about and write about stuff that we think will impact people's everyday lives, just so we remain relevant for them.
Ironically, our water bottles are glass.
They are.
And they're only for guests, believe it or not. I took one because I was pretty excited to get some of our own water.
Yeah. Well, we definitely rolled out the red carpet.
So similar to the newsletter, and JR's going to bust my chops for not doing background on this, but how long are your daily podcasts? Are they supposed to be brief synopsis on things, or do they go longer? Or?
Well, yeah, they're supposed to be zippy, but we have Emily, our producer, in our ear saying, next topic. Because there's certain ones that we could go on forever. I mean,
Tiger Woods.
There was a Tiger Woods broke up with Nike recently. And
did they break up, or did they?
It seemed mutual parting. See, here we are going on again about it. But
I saw it pop up on CNBC yesterday, and I'm like, is it him or them? I was like,
seems both.
Yeah,
Nike doesn't want to seem to be in the golf business anymore. There's certain topics where maybe we're a little more knowledgeable, a little more passionate, where we could probably go on forever, and Emily has to keep the ship running. But we want to be 20, 25 minutes. You're on the subway, you're in your car going to work, and we don't want to be like Joe Rogan, 4 hours of just vamping about maybe nothing. We want to be super zippy. It's in Morning Brew's DNA ever since the newsletter started, just to be super quick,
it
brief.
makes sense. Yeah.
People don't have long attention spans anymore, so we want to get in, get out.
Yeah, that's what we try to do, but our shit gets pretty wonky, and
it can get. I mean, we try, but we're definitely interested in expanding the universe and accessibility of our material.
When you say millions, how many listeners do you have?
Well, the newsletter has 4.3 million subscribers. Wow. So it's a lot. And we have a big staff now. I just want to clarify. It's not just us. We have 2 editors, 4 writers who are doing this newsletter 7 days a week. So it's kind of a big operation now. But newsletters are a great business. And that's why so many media companies have done this pivot to newsletters in the past couple of years, where they're firing off so many because they're really good monetization for ad placements. For direct response, you can click on an ad easily. They're very trackable, even better than podcasts. So
you've got a big team. We've got Jake.
What's up, Jake?
You know, who's like,
we have Daisy too.
That's true. That's true. We do it. We do have good support as well.
If you include us, that's fine. That's pretty
That's
legit.
badass, actually.
Yeah.
But you have to, I mean, you got, obviously, part of what makes it work is the personal rapport, and that's something that you can't, like, invent. And is that, like, evolved, or is it just, have you sort of evolved in the way that you interact with each other, whether you're on camera or not?
Are you guys still working on yours? I see it's still in the beginning stages.
Oh, yeah. No, it's pretty much Ronan, like, abuses me, and I slap back at him and make fun of his accent.
I'm getting that. I'm getting that.
But we're readily aware of what we are.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, we got lucky because, I mean, yeah, again, Neal hired me, but we ended up just becoming friends through working at the Brew for a while. And yeah, we remained friends even after I left the Brew. So then when it came time to kind of do a read together, we were just very comfortable with each other because we've known each other for a while now. And I think what works too is that we're both just generally interested people. And so it's very easy to talk with someone else who is also interested.
Yeah.
And if either one of us didn't have kind of that just natural intrigue with the stories we're talking about, I think it'd be a lot harder, especially to do this every dang day where you're going through 6 topics every day. So I think that's what helps make it work.
Yeah, I won't name names, but sometimes it's hard when you talk to people and you got to fucking beat an answer out of them, and you're like, oh my God, we got another 30 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Don't say anything, John.
But we're not, worried about that with you guys. But I'm curious now that you are on camera on the doing the YouTube type. Does it ever happen now that you're like out somewhere at a restaurant or coffee shop or whatever, and somebody goes, "Oh my God, it's the Brew dude"?
You'd be surprised actually, because it's mostly Instagram, because we post these clips, these reels of us, kind of smaller clips from the show, and that has a pretty big reach. Sometimes those go decently viral. And so it's been the gym, a few parties. There's been a few parties where after like the drinks flow a little bit, then someone will come up and say, I love your podcast, man. I listen to you every day. So it has been, it's above 10 times now in New York City, which is pretty cool.
That is
every
nice.
time.
Well, Toby dyed his hair blonde earlier this summer.
I noticed one of those.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes him stand out a little bit more as Toby, the Morning Brew guy. But yeah, we've been like half dressed at the gym, and some dude comes up to
That's
us.
the weirdest. At the gym, when you're quite literally in a state of undress, and you go, man, love the podcast. You're like, let's
You're
just
like, I don't
do
have a
this.
free arm right now.
Yeah, totally.
I'm gonna give you the elbow.
Right, exactly.
Step away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get that at all.
No, we
Just
definitely,
wait,
but
just wait.
we aspire, right? I
Industry
think this is going to be the launching pad.
Industry conferences specific on wonky market structure. People will tell
Your
us.
celebrities, your
They love
mom.
us. They love us. Oh, that's classic. Do you have any other questions before I move
No,
on?
please,
Are
go
we done?
ahead.
Sorry,
Go with it.
He gets very selfish and
No.
rattles them off.
Go with it,
I
Ronan.
mean, it is a pretty insane workload then that you're doing the stories at night. You're getting into the office at 4:30.
Mm-hmm. I think it's one of those things. We both liken it to you're like cramming for a test every single night because you have 6 topics that you got.
Yeah.
You can't just kind of know. You do have to know them to a certain degree that you can speak out loud. You can BS a little bit when you're writing. You can massage sentences here and there. But when you have to actually speak on a topic, you got to know it. So it's like cramming for a test every night. And then both of us do have kind of day jobs after the podcast ends, because technically we could be done with our workday at 6:30 a.m. once we're done recording the pod.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you go home and sleep?
No, we have full other jobs.
Yeah.
As a brew.
So it's a big load, but I mean, again, if you compare it to doing anything else, it's still
Anything else?
Yeah, I know.
Literally anything else.
Yeah, again,
Like
you know,
working at a stock exchange.
Yeah.
Like working at a stock exchange.
What makes you do that?
Torture.
yeah, exactly.
No, it's when you take a step back and you're in the day-to-day grind, you're like, this is really tough. And then you take a step back and you're like, all right, this is pretty fun. Like that, I get to talk with my friend in the morning, and a lot of people listen to it about the news, and we're educating people. I think we're helping people's lives. So if you just take a step back, It's great. It's great, but it is pretty intense, and I've come to appreciate the art of napping.
Yeah, we do take naps. Yeah, right around 2 or 3 rolls around.
Oh, that's a great idea. You have like a room with cots or something, and you go like.
We used to sleep in the office, but we kind of retire back to our own
quarters
for that
for the nap time.
So, what kind of stories have you found resonate with both like the general audience and those more versed in business and finance? Because I assume as you've graduated, there are quite a few business and finance people who use it, but more general also, right?
Super interesting. I think in the early days of Morning Brew, very geared towards banking and finance people, we would talk about Wall Street gossip, Bill Ackman, what is Ray Dalio thinking, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And then I think as the audience grew, the number of finance people or the share of finance people shrunk, and the share of broader people who just wanted to know about what was going on in the world grew. So we found that when we talk about markets and ETFs and investing a little more wonkily, it did not resonate as much. And now we've kind of pivoted to more general business news, how business is interacting with society, how business is interacting with the environment, politics, culture, things like that. And that seems to resonate a lot rather than just the wonky, like what companies IPOing it now.
Right.
That's what we got to do, because we might talk about ETFs, right? And ETFs, not because we're super smart people, are just very standard things.
We're pretty smart. I mean, don't sell us short.
John is.
Yeah.
And before podcasts, we tell guests, because believe it or not, some general people do listen to us. And I find that we try to explain things, but we don't explain it enough. So let's go higher level.
Probably, yeah. So speaking of one topic, and this is one that you talked about this morning, I know is the SEC finally, after many, many months of delay, approved these Bitcoin ETF
That's called
applications.
a bridge, by the way. I brought
It's
it.
a very well.
Great
subtle. Thank you. Thank you.
I didn't
Yeah.
even notice it.
Yeah, you thought we weren't pros? Jesus.
He's like, you were making sign language, Ronan. Take it, John.
So Bitcoin ETF. So this is you guys are talking a little bit about this. So basically a way for average ordinary investors to be able to invest in Bitcoin in a way that maybe is easier than they have been, making it more accessible. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's what are your thoughts generally about crypto and this particular development in terms of how younger people are viewing crypto as part of the investment landscape?
I think one step that guess for some background, like I've invested in crypto, not like crazy monkey profile pic, but just like since right around when I entered college.
That was crazy.
Yeah. 2015, 2016. And so to me, I always thought like, why is the ETF such a big deal? Because Coinbase is so easy. Like why can't you just buy it via Coinbase?
Yeah,
why is that so hard?
Yeah.
But I do think that I've kind of become numb to the fact that downloading Coinbase, setting up a wallet, buying Bitcoin directly is very intimidating for a large part of the population, young or old. It doesn't matter necessarily your age, just your familiarity with the space. And people are a lot more familiar with ETFs, with just their brokerage accounts, with their retirement accounts and whatnot. So I do think it is a fairly big step, just seeing from the enthusiasm today. Like it got approved and is trading for the first time today. So initially I was skeptical because I say, again, just download Coinbase. It's right there for you. But now I've come to realize that not everybody's in my shoes, and it is a big deal for the...
Right. Like even my old ass, I have some wallets and stuff like that. But like when we talk to like the institutional trading community, like the hedge funds, mutual funds, they have very strict mandates on what they can and cannot purchase. And having exposure to Bitcoin, most, if not all of the non-crypto hedge funds could not, and now they can as of today.
Interesting. Yeah, we should have probably touched on like the institutional investor angle. Yeah. Maybe the regular people won't care as much, but those are the people handling your money, and they're the ones really buying ETFs. Because I don't know if I went up to a bunch of my friends and say, "Hey, like, what ETF did you buy last week?" No one would have any idea that what I'm talking about. Right. But the way we framed it this morning was, you look in your 401k, you look in your retirement account. That is where you're going to see the ETFs.
Yeah, and you're trusting them to make these kinds of decisions for you. I mean, part of it, I think that people, fine to provide this new avenue, but people need to understand that it's still a relatively speculative investment. This is not so. It depends, like, you're not going to be putting all your retirement money into this thing. But if you're paying somebody to manage your money and they want to allocate some portion of it, then they can do that. But
like in our space, right, and you deal with the SEC, they talk a lot about what does the retail trader and protect the retail trader and not that I don't give a shit about the retail trader, but
He gives a shit.
I do give a shit officially. I love you, Gary. But like in the grand scheme of things, especially as you get older in life, your investments are really not you on your Fidelity account slinging around like Apple and stuff. It's more things like you're talking about, like ETFs. And if those mutual funds that invest more of our money can get exposure to crypto, to the extent that you like crypto, we think it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess talking to my parents and my parents' friends, everyone goes, so what? Like, what's going on with Bitcoin? And again, those are not the people that are going to go through the steps going through Coinbase. Yeah. But the word exposure is the one that always comes back. It's like they just want a little piece of it. They just
in case.
Yeah, just in case. Right. And so like
you never know.
That conversation.
In case we're all living in a spider hole, can't rely on dollars anymore.
Bitcoin still hasn't really defined itself. I still think in all of this, we're like, the legitimization of Bitcoin. But I try to make the point that I still don't think Bitcoin has lived to its promise of really anything except maybe being a store of value. But for the average person, they're going to start paying attention. I don't think they're paying attention right now, the average person. But if Bitcoin, it's all about the price. Yeah. If Bitcoin price doubles from here, then the average person that you talk to who doesn't care about finance is going to start asking you questions because there's money to be made.
Yeah, but that's the weird thing, because like a typical financial investment, a stock, obviously the price can be affected by speculation, but there's some kind of underlying fundamentals that you can kind of analyze and look and decide whether the price is a good value or not. With Bitcoin, it seems to be driven by factors.
No, their latest earning report was really impressive.
Forget about the halving.
Yeah, the halving coming up. Yeah.
Next topic.
We will see. Yeah, let's go.
Bridge into AI, the other cool topic.
We're on buzzwords today.
All the cool kids are doing AI. And you also talked a little bit about this too this morning. I thought was interesting. I'm
really impressed John listened to you guys.
We really appreciate
your research.
Yeah. So I have a job.
I'm not just like give me a break. So OpenAI selling custom chatbots, which sounds like either really interesting or kind of dystopian. So talk a little bit about that. What's that about?
I don't think it's that dystopian. I think it is very interesting though. So OpenAI released this GPT store where instead of just offering ChatGPT, which is what I call like a jack of all trades, it kind of can tell you a little bit about everything. These are very focused chatbots trained on specific data sets that can just be more effective at doing if you have a specific task you want to do. So All Trails is an app that finds you hiking trails. And so there's a specific custom GPT that's just All Trails. There's one for Code Academy that teaches you coding. So I think this is just kind of the fragmentation of chatbots into more specific ones that could be more useful. And what OpenAI wants to do is sell that $20 subscription to GPT Plus. So it's adding all of these features behind this $20 subscription. And that's how it wants to make money. And it's operating it as a rev share instead of the typical app store where Apple's taking a cut. So it's paying out developers and creators of these custom GPTs, and it's hoping to incentivize them to, add to the store and make it a thriving marketplace.
Yeah. Neal kind of likened it to YouTube in a way, because that's how YouTube monetizes and pays its creators, and it does a rev share agreement. It does seem like one of those things where, so we've got that first wave of large language models that came out that are jack of all trades, where I think people maybe are imagining a world where we just are all equipped with a better Siri, if you will, this kind of omniscient AI that can help you do a little bit of everything. But maybe this is OpenAI saying that maybe it's not this omniscient, singular kind of chatbot that you're interacting with. It's a bunch of niche, specific ones to handle specific tasks, kind of like apps in the App Store. So I do think this is them kind of playing both sides of it. They're developing this big omniscient one, and then also these much more specific, use case specific ones.
Yes. So that's all. This sounds like kind of an incremental advance in kind of the use of this. The dystopian piece is the fear that a lot of people have, that not that you're going to the new tools that are going to be able to work for you, but they're going to replace you and make you their bitch, right? So,
which we actually spoke about 2 days ago, and we've spoke about frequently on the show, is Duolingo, the language training company. Yeah. They've been kind of slowly replacing their contract translators with a large language model, OpenAI ChatGPT. And so that is like one of the more specific examples of literally a one-to-one AI is replacing humans example in the workforce, which is what we've been cautioned about. So we are seeing that happen, and that will inevitably happen.
But then again, the AI job postings are increasing, so there, I just want to put it in a little historical context that technology has disrupted jobs before. It's also created new jobs, and it's caused a lot of anxiety in the past and as it is now. So we don't really know how it's going to shake out.
Yeah. Well, and obviously,
remember back in your day when robots started building cars?
and the scariest thing was 38 miles of carbon pool.
Go fuck yourself. Recently, on a recent podcast, he called me, aren't you Gen A? Which I thought was like extremely abusive.
I was saying A as in A being good.
Yeah, right. That was it.
But while I'm generalizing people, like when I introduced you guys, I introduced you, Neal, as the pianist and you, Toby, as the soccer player. But I'm sure there's far more to your background than that, but I didn't see anything about coming up in the financial world. So or you just learned on the job, like everything? Like
we're just BSing everything.
Yeah.
Great, because that's pretty much what we do. And it seems to have worked for us so far.
To be honest, that is like bullshit your way through until you learn. But like, what challenges did you face, like in covering finance and business? You're pros. You weren't always pros, right?
Literally did not. I think my first exposure to business was The Apprentice. I'm embarrassed to say that, but it's true.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is a thing that people do, that they have these ideas and make businesses and have profit and revenue. And I was young. I didn't really understand business or ever thought about it. When I continued into college at the University of Maryland, still very much on the humanities track, I studied history. I always kind of made fun of my friends who were in business school because they didn't have, or I was jealous of them rather, because they didn't have class on Friday. So I thought it was kind of a joke. I was like grinding away reading these huge books. And I never thought I was going to get into the business world until that LinkedIn post saying, hey, we need a writer for Morning Brew. And then I was like, hey, I think I could probably do this.
I mean, one of the reasons I like and respect you guys is you clearly understand and appreciate the importance of good writing, and which is something that I think people lose track of. I mean, depreciate.
Neal has hired a bunch of writers in his tenure, and he's had some with good business backgrounds, some with very little business background, because you are right. Like, clear communication is probably much more difficult to teach than the actual world of business.
Yeah.
And I think coming into, because we both didn't really have business backgrounds. Coming in, you can, one, get away with just being interested, like we've talked about. If you're interested in something, you can learn about it. But two, it's kind of helpful to apply business to a wider audience that isn't business focused, because you can show how it touches every part of your lives, or a much broader spectrum. It's not all just like earnings reports and really high finance that intimidates a lot of people. It can be something that affects a lot more people. And I think our background helps us speak to that audience more effectively.
Well, sure. And that's a big part of your value. You got to take yourself out of the bubble.
Right.
So what I learned is that you get too much sort of blinders on, sort of stuck in your lane. You can run the risk of getting to the point where you can't communicate important concepts.
We have that discussion almost daily on is this a bubble? Like, do people actually care about this? A lot of it is inside baseball media stuff for us. We're like, how many do people really care about ESPN and Pat McAfee and these tensions in the media world? Because we're a little closer to that. So that is a sentence that we utter very frequently, is is this just a bubble, or do people actually care about this?
Yeah. No, I think you're doing something right, because you obviously have gotten traction with a lot of people.
Teach us.
Yeah.
Has your involvement, I guess, in finance, has it shifted your personal investment strategies? And I have to bust on you, Toby, because I believe this one shared you accidentally purchased 40,000 shares of Sherman Williams and Co.
40,000
Wait,
shares?
tell the story.
What price was it?
Okay.
What's going on?
It wasn't 40,000 shares. It ended up being $40,000 though, that I accidentally bought on margin. I meant to buy 10 shares. I bought 100 shares. And this was in college.
See, this is the danger of self-traded accounts.
I know, it truly was. And my logic behind Sherman Williams was like, I don't know, in spring is home improvement time. I'm like, oh, what a great idea. So I bought it then. And then I quickly like panicked. Like my account said, you do not have the funds to support this. Like they shouldn't have allowed me to do the trade whatsoever. So I immediately like sold most of it back. If I had kept it though, this was before the pandemic. Remember during the pandemic, home improvement.
Your thesis was correct.
My thesis, I was just too early. And so if I held that, like it truly would have been a nice little 10 bagger for me. But yeah that's my fateful brush with margin.
You'll come to us next time before you make an investment decision.
Yeah, sure.
I guess to the earlier part of your question, though, has our strategies traded? I mean, we discuss it fairly often. We're talking about these stories. Like, what are we learning? What themes are we seeing? What theses are we developing? And we don't come up with too much. Sometimes it's hard when you're in it daily. You can't see like the bigger picture. So I don't know if we've become better or worse, but we're certainly interested in it.
Yeah.
I would think it'd be helpful. There's enough people on Wall Street full of shit, and they speak with conviction about what you should do.
And we know many of them.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of them are in this room.
We love you all.
Are they in the room with us right now?
They might be. When people ask me what stock to buy, I'm like, we trade them. We do not pick them.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so looking ahead for the remainder of the year, are there particular themes that you're thinking about, or you're thinking that you're going to be focusing into? I mean, obviously, the election is coming up, and that's what maybe all of us should be dreading that one way or the other. But it's obviously politics intersects with everything else. So how are you thinking about that and other trends coming down the road?
For sure. I think the election is going to be huge, not just in the United States, but across the world. It's the busiest election year in history. 4 billion people are going to be voting. So from here to Taiwan, to India, to Europe, it's just going to be an election year for the ages. And obviously that's going to impact business. So it'll be up to Toby and I to not really get into the horse race of the election of how is Iowa going to vote? How's Michigan looking? But, it could be interesting to say like how the unions are voting in Michigan relative like Biden's support of the UAW during its strike. How does that going to impact things? So stuff with a business lens in that vein could be super interesting for us to dive into. What else are we looking at for this year?
I know, just for the themes going forward. I mean, energy was one that we were talking about. It's just what is going to go on with just because global trade is so messed up, and just what's going on with the Houthi rebels and everything like that. So again, like we know what's happening, but then we're not really sure what the next step is. Like, what is the trade here? Yeah. Right. So we are aware of it, but we like to say we're not financial advisors on our show very frequently. So we never have to go that actual step.
That's
in
always
making
a safe
recommendations.
statement.
Exactly.
One thing we did talk about today was the big snack versus big pharma showdown with Wegovy and Ozempic versus the Pepsi, Mondelez in the world.
Yeah.
I think that is probably a little overblown. You have Morgan Stanley analysts saying that this, if 7% of the entire American population is going to be on one of these weight loss drugs, then it's going to lead to a 3% decline in consumption of baked goods and salty snacks. I don't know, but I do think, you saw with like Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, these are just massive companies right now. And I do think that maybe these weight loss diabetes drugs, as more is learned about them, will be even more disruptive than we think now.
Yeah, the ripple effects of a lighter population are kind of insane when you start to think about it, because there's been reports about the airline industry potentially saving millions of dollars on fuel costs because they're literally transported.
The average weight of
the average. So once you start,
and you're looking at me while you're saying that, so I think it's rather insulting. But
I was taking a moment.
You looked at us both actually. Fuck you, Toby.
Dashing back and forth. Yeah, but that's certainly an interesting.
I think it's
one.
Fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
It is. So you have to dig into this stuff in order to uncover these little tidbits, which is part of like
it's the job. It's part of the job.
Yeah, just read as much as possible.
that's
nothing beats just like spending time reading, because that's where you find out these things. If you kind of just take your eyes off of Twitter, if you take your eyes off of the headlines for even a day, you're going to miss some really interesting fact to share. Yeah. So it's kind of this doom cycle.
It's our life. It's our life.
And I assume that one of the recurring themes for people of you young whippersnappers, your generation, it should be for everybody, is sustainability and climate effects and all of that. You did a bit this morning too on kind of the snow drought, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can wake up every morning and either be very like scared and depressed about the future, or very optimistic and excited about like the problems that are being solved. And I mean, we tend to take a more optimistic lens. We just recorded an additional podcast today where we were kind of bullish or bearish on certain topics, and one of those topics were electric vehicles. And we both generally came to we're long-term bullish on them, just given the involvement of the government subsidies and just the sheer amount of cars being created in China right now. So that's always something that we are thinking about. And yeah, I think in general we're generally bullish on that.
We should talk more general, man. We're the opinion.
we are, and I think we can
People
speak to the masses,
shit,
and there's
no way I'm reading at night and then doing it in the morning. Just FYI, you do that.
We're not taping at 6 a.m.
You did your little detective work this morning. I had a quick question to help John out. Like I'm told you do these podcast segments, right? Toby's Trends and Neal's Numbers. I've been trying to get him to do a Ramsey's Ramblings newsletter.
It's a good name.
Yeah, it needs to have alliteration. That's the only thing. You could write about anything.
That's what I'm learning here. Yeah. Toby's Trends, Neal's Numbers. But like, what's your process for? So those are individual, and like you guys own. I haven't listened to them, but are they very different? And how do you pick what you pick?
We just want to create like a more interesting show, and we feel like if we just run down the news from headline to headline to headline, it might get a little monotonous in terms of format. So I mean, we grew up watching SportsCenter and various sports shows that had these different segments, SportsCenter Top 10. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that to happen, and I'm going to see the top 10 plays. So that's just maybe one example of certain segment or the segmentization of a show where you get people interested in hearing a particular segment. And it's really just a vehicle for delivering news. That's kind of the point. It's like, we're going to share this information, but maybe we can package it in an interesting way that gets people excited more than if we just said it like another headline. And so, we went the alliteration route. Neal's Numbers is about like just different stat. People love knowing just numbers and stats because they want to have fun conversations with people.
Do you each do one every podcast, or
no? It's weekly.
So Neal's Numbers is on Thursday. Toby's Trends is on Tuesday. So
Classic.
Big alliteration there. I think it also they generally
Tuesday, Toby Trends.
they reflect our personalities as well. Toby's Trends is supposed to be a more like internet-y culture thing. I kind of play up the fact that I'm Gen Z and Neal is a millennial. So I'll say like what the youth are talking about and the grizzled millennials want to know about. So we'll kind of play into some of our kind of roles within the podcast, these mini personality things.
Ronan does that too, but in a more brutal kind of
we're both old. You're just older than me.
As long as you alliterate, you can get away with calling him anything.
Ramsey's Ramblings.
Right. Exactly.
Here he goes again.
Yeah, there you go. So you do this podcast yourself, but I also know, because I've done the research, that you do interview other people as well sometimes. Right. So that's a whole different thing. How do you figure out what guests are going to interview? I'm sure you had this. We've had the experience too. You can tell within the first 2 minutes whether somebody's going to be like an engaging, fun guest.
Well, whoever does your booking, exceptional job.
All right. There you go.
Shout out Daisy.
Yeah. We bring in guests on holidays, company holidays. When we're not in the office, we pre-record, so we always have content going out even on holidays. And we've figured out that it's easy to just book someone for an interview. And we've actually tried to semi-align the person we're interviewing with the time of the year that we're doing. So our most recent one was with James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits, a big self-help, how you set habits, how you set goals person. Yeah. We released that episode on January 1st, and that episode inevitably did really well just by SEO. People are Googling like, how do I set goals? And our podcast episode comes up. He was incredible.
We did well too.
In terms
that
of
interview, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a
nailed
good
it.
Yeah, thank you.
We did well. James did well. It was a perfect fit. Yeah, so I think we don't have plans to, do a ton of interviews, but when we do them, I think that's a good model to have where we have a really interesting guest and it really hit the sweet spot in terms of topic matter.
Yeah. Great. Well, and, Ronan and I are also available for, bookings.
We'll have our booking agent reach out to your booking agent.
Absolutely.
Quid pro quo.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. So when we're thinking of segments, we used to have a segment on our podcast where at the end of every show we'd ask the guests what their favorite Wall Street movie is, and why.
But then that got a little long in the tooth. People thought it was
A lot of people said the same thing.
How many were there? How many are there?
Well, I mean, more than you might think. And sometimes people came up with very creative answers. Like some people came up with like. A few people named American Psycho, which I thought was a bit of a stretch, but also
great movie though.
Yeah.
The people who think that's an aspirational movie are not the people you want to be hanging out with necessarily.
Probably not.
You wouldn't believe how many people said The Wolf of Wall Street.
I do. Yeah. I have American Psychos. I have his skincare routine though. So if I'm looking good, then it's the face mask. Yeah.
It is cool the proliferation of business focused TV shows. I mean, Industry on HBO, which I actually haven't watched, but everyone says it's great.
Good, yeah.
Succession. I mean, Succession managed to make corporate governance and board meetings into this dramatic event where everyone's like, I can't wait for the next episode where they have the board meeting. And I don't think anyone has ever said that.
Well, oddly enough, and you started off in a WeWork space. I know they filmed an episode of the We Crashed show here in our offices here.
Oh, really?
That's very cool.
Yeah, Morning Brew, our first office was in a WeWork at 85 Broad, just down the road from here.
Yeah.
Neal's getting all nostalgic.
I was getting all nostalgic. We came in the office. I was like, man, for 3 years, I commuted to this train station and then went to the office.
WeWork came after us. When we were founded, we were in like a windowless conference room.
Yeah.
We paid a monthly rate on and had to bring our own coffee. And then we saw WeWork was, besides the fact that it's not doing great financially, was a fantastic setup.
So great. We met a lot of other great people. Everyone was like, oh my God, did you drink the beer? Like there's so much alcohol. And I was like, nah, man, we were working till midnight. Like we were trying to churn out this newsletter. So we didn't really avail ourselves of all of the fun stuff because we were just grinding hard to make sure this company stayed alive.
We definitely never drink on company offices here.
We have a bunch of kegs, as you might have seen on your way in.
We sampled.
Liquidity.
Before,
The liquidity lager.
It's tasty, but you can't drink before the market closes at 4. That's
the rules.
Oh, was that right? Is that the rule? Nobody.
John was not aware of that one.
Jesus.
right. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right.
But
we don't do that question anymore.
No, we do have a closing question for you though, because it's our shtick. It's our segment.
Yeah.
Ramsey's Ramblings. If you could turn an everyday object into a form of currency, what object would you choose and why?
Neal had a great answer to this. I'm going to let you go first.
Don't raise expectations.
I'm setting you up.
I was thinking a football. Because what's more fun than just tossing a football around? Like, that is just my childhood. I love doing that. So if I could just make a transaction and just go up to the guy at 7-Eleven and be like, yo, man, like, I want a taquito. Like, and then we just start tossing the ball. That sounds super fun. And then different balls are different denominations of banknotes. So, maybe the $1 bill.
You do like a Nerf ball.
Right.
Like
that's for international transactions because those things go forever. Yeah, exactly. And then each country could have its own ball. Like India would have a cricket ball or something like that.
You have to carry big sacks on your back to buy a copy.
It's not practical, but it might teach you what the value of money actually is. Yeah. And then we're also thinking the higher the bills go, the heavier the ball gets. So $100 bill, you're tossing a medicine ball at the cashier. Hey, can you break this?
You took a really goofy question and came up with a very creative answer.
We were discussing.
Well, tell me, what's your answer?
I don't actually. I thought we were just scaling it up into.
It's a combined answer.
Yeah, we combined it. Yeah.
Another concept answer that we were playing with was something very delicate, like a egg, balancing on a spoon, and that would kind of teach you to be conservative with your money, and it's not so easy to give it up. So something just like a little more fragile or delicate, just because right now when you can just swipe something, and
if you're making it rain, are you throwing eggs at people? I don't think it works if you take it to Vegas or
teach people not to buy Sherman Williams on.
There you go.
I'm buying eggs on the margin.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. We appreciate it. You certainly are professionals. No one's ever put thought into a question like that.
You were both professional and very entertaining and engaging and fun to talk with. And
all our listeners, please listen to their podcast.
Yeah.
Come on over. We'll take you. We feel you guys breathing down our necks on the charts.
This is going to be our launching pad, so
let's take this to video, John. Then we're really
look back to this moment.
You guys got a voice for radio.
Yeah, you guys are hilarious. I really appreciate it. It's been fun. Thanks for inviting us.
Cheers.
Over and out.
God bless you. Irish section. Are you a diehard boxer or liner, or just a fair weather fan? No judgments, I know how annoying JR's Irish accent can be. Either way, we want to hear from you on our new Boxes and Lines listener survey to find out what you think about the show, give input on future episodes, guests, and more. We'll take it back to our survey counter thingy machine and consider all of your inputs as we plan our 2024 season. You can find the survey at iex.getfeedback.com/boxesandlines. And don't worry, there's something in it for you. That's my drum roll. JR could probably do it better. You get a pair of socks. That's right, take the survey, we'll send you a pair of our coveted Box and Line socks while supplies last in a new limited edition print. How's that for listener appreciation? So take the survey, tell us what you think, and thanks for listening. Again, that's iex.getfeedback.com/boxesandlines. Over and out.
Boxes and Lines is a podcast from IEX Exchange. It is hosted by Ronan Ryan and John Ramsey. Executive produced by Daisy Clace, with support from Benstown. For more information and to hear more episodes, go to iexexchange.io/podcast. Thank you for listening to Boxes and Lines. The information and opinions expressed in this podcast are provided for informational and educational purposes only, and IEX Group Incorporated and its affiliates do not make any representations or warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the information contained in this podcast. Nothing in this podcast constitutes a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any securities or provide any investment advice or service. Some portions of the preceding conversation may have been edited for length or clarity. Copyright IEX Group Incorporated, all rights reserved.